adesso switcheremo in inglese perché l'ultimo intervento è di Horacio Gonzales, DevRel di OVH, e quindi lo presentiamo. So, welcome Horacio. Welcome
Hi.
to Container Day. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I am happy to be here.
And we are happy to have you with us. So you are the DevRel leader for OVHcloud.
Yeah.
And what's your daily job as a DevRel leader?
I work at developer relations, what other companies call developer evangelism, developer advocacy. Basically, when I try to explain it to my father, I say that my job is that next time you will have an application to deploy in infrastructure to build, instead of going directly to the cloud providers from the United States, you say, hey, why not I look at OVHcloud and see if there is an European alternative. That's basically my job. And today I am talking about something that maybe it can sound odd for a containers day, because I am talking about a developer environment and IDE in the cloud.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
You will understand why in the talk.
Okay, let's see the video, and when we will come back, I'll ask you some questions.
Yeah, I will be happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello everybody. I am really happy to be here at this virtual container day, and I hope that next edition will be physical and we will be able to be together in a big room and share better all the content, all the information, and all the good moments. Before beginning, let me do a disclaimer. This talk has begun as the work of two persons, myself and my friend Philip Scherger. He isn't here today to do this talk, he wasn't available, but all the examples, all the content has been done together, so I say once again, thank you, Philip. So, who am I? I am Horacio Gonzalez. As you can maybe hear, I am a Spaniard living in France, so my English accent combines the worst traits of both Spanish and French accents. Sorry about that. I hope it won't bother you too much. I am the head of the DevRel team at OVHcloud. That means that my team, myself, work in order to be sure that every developer, every DevOps, every SRE knows our products, our company, and that we are a good interface between them and our internal developers. As I told to my father when he asked me what's my job is that next time you have an application to deploy in an infrastructure to build before going to an American or Chinese cloud, you tell yourself, hey, why not OVHcloud? Why not an European alternative? Because that's what we are. We are one of the world leaders in the cloud. We are in the top 10 of the cloud providers. We are the only European in this position. We have data centers all around the world and customers also around the world. And we have a huge catalog of products from traditional web hosting to public and private cloud to bare metal servers, storage, and many other services. So as I told you, next time you will need some hosting, some application, some infrastructure, have a look to our website, because we are offering high quality products with high performance and very, very affordable prices. You're going to have high performance at affordable prices in all our ranges. For example, here in our bare metal servers, you have the Intel Xeon Silver and Gold series in our high-end servers at very interesting prices. You also have high-end solutions in our private cloud. You also have broad range of instances in our public cloud with very innovative products from Kubernetes to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and others. So please have a look at them. I think you will be surprised. And I am here to talk about GitPod. Last week, when I talked with some friends about my talk, they didn't understand. Hey, it is container day. You should be talking something about containers, maybe Kubernetes, and you are talking about an IDE. What's the point, guy? Well, I tried to explain them with some marketing. Hey, we are in a cloud war. There are cloud services everywhere. Everybody is using cloud. Cloud services are based more and more on containers. Containers are today one of the basic building blocks of the cloud and of cloud services. And we as developers, we build the cloud, we build every service, every application, we build those containers, we deploy them, and yet, we are building them in a way not quite dissimilar to the one we did some 30 years ago. We are still installing our IDE in our laptop, and we are using the tools in our laptop. So maybe we should be building for the cloud in the cloud. And you see, okay, I cut the bill crap. Sorry about that. That was marketing, and I am here to talk about tech. So let's talk tech. Well, a thing I don't like about being a developer in 2021 is that if you want to be serious about building things for the cloud, you need a very expensive high-end computer. And for me, that's a problem. Let me explain. Maybe you have some experience like this one. Hey, next week you begin your next mission in a new customer, and they are working in a super distributed systems using Redis, MongoDB. They have some applications in Java, other in Python, other in Go. They have an event using RabbitMQ. They have this, they have that. And you need to be there on next Monday, and you need to be operational from first day because they are paying big dollars for you. And here you have your new corporate laptop, an old computer, a ThinkPad or a Dell with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Well, if you have been there, you understand the problem. The problem is that today it is rather easy to develop for the cloud, at least in paper. Containers have made it easy because you can have the same architecture that you have in production in your laptop, and it is easy to install. You don't need to find a good version for your operative system or the right database. No, you only get the image, the same one as in production, and you deploy them in your laptop. And even if the architecture to deploy is complex, you can do it rather easily, maybe using some tools like Docker Compose, Swarm, or Kubernetes. And if you do it, they are going to work on your laptop. But a laptop is still a laptop. So even if you can install almost anything, almost any complex architecture on your laptop using containers and some orchestrator maybe, it is going to be slow, it is going to be hot, it is going to need a lot of CPU and RAM. So go back to the $5,000 computer. Yeah. And not even that, it is going to take some time because you are going to need to install the orchestrator, you are going to need to deploy everything, and installing and configuring all that isn't as easy and painless as we would like. So yeah, you need a high-end computer, some skills, and some time. And for me, it's a pity, because in an ideal world, you won't need anything like that. You will have some kind of IDE as a service, and you will have your computer connect using your browser to your IDE as a service and develop everything from the IDE as a service environment. And you will also be able to test there, to share your content with some others, to do all the building pipeline, and even to deploy from them. Yeah. And that is what my talk is about GitPod and IDE as a service. It is open source, you have a SaaS version if you prefer, but you can deploy it yourself, either alone or using the pro licensing in any Kubernetes, and you can use it to get automated ephemeral developer environments in the web. At the heart of GitPod, you have an IDE running in a browser tab. The first versions were based on Eclipse Teia, but right now they are based on Visual Studio Code. It is more than an IDE. It's an ephemeral development environment. You can deploy all the building bricks. IDE is only one of them, the editor, but you also need to deploy some databases. Hey, you can do it in GitPod. You need to develop some event views. You can do it in GitPod. You need to deploy this and that. You can deploy all the building bricks of your architecture using Docker Compose, for example, and you can have the whole environment needed to code on your application at your browser tab without installing anything and lightning fast. So if you use that, you don't need an overpowered laptop anymore. You can use a low-end netbook or a Chromebook or even a tablet like an iPad or an Android tablet. With a tablet, the experience is a bit worse because of the keyboard, because of the lack of trackpad, but it can be done, and it allows you to develop everywhere using the computer that you have with you at every moment. GitPod works around the concept of projects. Projects are based on Git repositories. I mean, GitPod, as the name says, it is based on Git. It's going to take the code and the configuration from a Git repository and build the project around that. And it works with any Git repository. The public software as a service version works only with the three main repository organization, GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket. But if you use the on-premise or the open source version, you can also contact your own private Git repositories. It is very useful if you use private on-premise Git repositories because of security concerns or regulatory concerns. So, how do you take a Git repository and create a GitPod project from it? By default, you don't need anything. You only open your repository in GitPod, and then GitPod is going to assign it a by default workspace base, the GitPod/workspace full image that will work for many simple projects using, for example, Node.js. If you are doing, for example, a Java project, the basic image hasn't all the needed bricks in order to run Java, the JDK, the Java tooling. So you can use the GitPod configuration files. There is GitPod YAML that allows you to configure the whole process, and there is the GitPod Docker file that allows you to choose the base image and add all the layers needed in order to run your project. And with these two sample files, you can create the environment for almost any project, for all the projects I have tried to do. So it is really easy, and in many cases, no configuration file is needed. Inside projects, you can create and use workspaces. The project is the image of your Git repository in GitPod, and the workspace is the running environment created from this project. And from a same project, you can have many different workspaces, created, for example, from different Git branches or Git commits. You can create as many workspaces as you need, and you can share your workspaces. You can, hey, I have created this workspace with this modification. I can share it with a colleague in order to allow them to test and to give me an advice, for example, or in order to reproduce a bug or a specific use case. You can also communicate from one workspace to another in the same project or in different projects. It allows you to easily see how the new feature you are developing works in real time with other workspaces, with other parts of your different projects. So, how much does it cost? Well, there is the software as a service version, and there you can see the different plan and the prices. There is also a free open source license for the open source projects. If you have a well-established open source project and you want that the project be able to use GitPod and the contributors be able to use GitPod in order to easily test and use and contribute to your project, a good way is to ask gitpod.io for this license, and it's really wonderful because your new contributors won't need to install anything in order to begin to contribute to your project. It really lowers the entry barrier to contribute to an open source project. There is also the self-hosted version, either the full open source or using a licensing if you want some support. That allows you to install your GitPod in any Kubernetes and have all the advantages, fully private environment, using your fully private Git repository, and for security or regulatory concerns, it's really a wonderful solution. What are some other use cases? My particular entry point to GitPod was running a workshop. It was more or less like that. I got accepted at a conference, but with many more people than usual, some people in remote, some people in presential. I needed to do a coding web component workshop. When I did that before the pandemics in presential, I had a lot of USB keys in order to allow people to install on the NPM tooling they needed, even if we have some problems with bandwidth and all that. But I wasn't able to do that in this use case. So I looked around and Philip, my usual co-speaker, told me about GitPod. I tried, it was simply wonderful. I had my Stencil Beers tutorial. I simply added the button open in GitPod, and I was able to code in real time. They could follow all the steps of the tutorial, test directly without having to install TypeScript, Node, nothing, and they could test with their own browser. And they could even send me the URL in order to allow me to test the result from my browser. It was simply the best solution in order to run a workshop. After that, I have used GitPod in order to do many kind of workshop, web-based development, but also backend-based development in Java, creating APIs in Golang, using databases too for both conferences and university courses. Another good use case is when you need to set up team environments for a new project, for example. You don't need anymore to prepare all the different computers for the team and install manually all the components. You can simply create the GitPod project, and you can allow every team member to personalize them using environment variables. So they can begin from the same project. They can create a workspace, and in GitPod workspaces, you can also define environment variables. So you can have from the same project for every team member, 15 different workspaces, one for every member, and every member is using their own credentials by defining them as workspaces variables. It's a really good way to quickly set up a world environment for a world team. Another use case I have done is I have used GitPod as an integrated learning platform. I had some Kubernetes courses to do, especially in order to teach our OVHcloud managed Kubernetes. And the constraint was that people, attendees, weren't able to install a specific tooling in their laptop. So I couldn't ask them to install kubectl or Helm or any other tooling. And they didn't want to need to create the Kubernetes project and all that by hand. So I decided to automate that. I created the template with all the API calls in order to create a new Kubernetes clusters in our OVHcloud infrastructures. I set up all the steps of my tutorials. I installed in the project kubectl, Helm, and all the tooling. And I simply gave the attendees the project URL and asked them to create a workspace. Every one of them create a different workspace and to use their credentials, OVHcloud, API key, and all that as environment variables in their own workspace. That allowed them to use the GitPod as base and all the kube control actions, Helm deployments, and all that, and all the Docker commands in order to create their own image and all that were run over GitPod. It makes things really easy, and it's allowed me to create to do the workshop without any problem. So in order to create integrated learning platforms that can be used anywhere, there is also a good solution. Another one is to give customers or testers an easy way to test a new feature, to reproduce a bug, or simply to see the current advancement state. You can simply create a new workspace from a specific commit, modify it, and then share the state you want to share with your customer, and they will be able to replicate exactly the same state. You can do it also if you are, as me, as a developer advocate, and customers tell you, hey, there is something that it isn't working. You can reproduce it using GitPod, exactly the state with all the modification needed, and you share the workspace with your internal teams in order to allow them to easily see what's the problem like. So it's a very nice feature. So, as I told before, you are going to code for the cloud, in the cloud, removing all the friction, removing the need to install things, removing the need to have different local environments, allowing to create a new environment from any state in your Git project, from any commit, from any branch in a moment, to share it, to verify it, to test how it works with the rest of your application, your environment, and to do it from a sample netbook or Chromebook on the fly. And that for me changed the way as I develop. It even changed my needs. I don't think I need such an overpowered laptop anymore. I have right now a rather small MacBook Air, and it's really work because many things I do it in my open source GitPod instance without any hassle. And okay, how you can install it? What do you need in order to do it? And why you wouldn't use the software as a service version and want to install your own version in your own cluster? Well, let's begin with that last question. There are some good reasons and some very bad reasons in order to want to prefer to use the open source on-premise GitPod. Let's begin with the bad. The bad reason is, hey, I think GitPod is expensive, so I am going to install the open source version of GitPod in my a small server under my table, and I am going to use it, or in a cloud instance I am going to get. Well, if that's the reason, sorry, it is a bad reason. It is going to cost you money and time in order to host your GitPod, and at the end, it isn't a real gain of time or of energy to self-install and self-host it. A better reason is, hey, I don't feel like using a software as a service version. I am a banking and insurance software editor, and I don't want to risk to use a SaaS platform. That means that if you are current, you aren't using GitLab or GitHub or Bitbucket because they have the same security concerns. If you don't want to put your source code on GitPod, you don't want to put it on GitLab, for example. Well, that means that you are indulging on-premise way of life. And then it's a good idea to install GitPod on-premise, the open source version. But maybe also you can install the on-premise license and get some support. But for me, that's the real reason why you would like to install the open source. Another good one, I want to test, I want to learn, I want to see, but I am not using it for production. So if you are using it for production, please do it for the good reason. How do you install it? Well, it isn't as straightforward as I would love, even if the last month they have released a Helm chart that makes things really easier. 2 months ago, I would have said that it's really difficult to install GitPod. Now I only say it isn't so easy. You need some Kubernetes skills to install and to debug the installation when it doesn't work as you would like, but it can be done with sometimes by anybody who knows a bit about Kubernetes, Helm, some basic install, some basic install debugging. As usual, if you install it in Kubernetes, please, if you don't really need it, don't use your own Kubernetes cluster. It's maybe another talk, but remember that using a managed Kubernetes, our managed Kubernetes or any competitor's managed Kubernetes is a better solution for most of the cases. Get any managed Kubernetes solution, a certified one, and you will get the cluster, and the operator of the solution will get the problems. As usual, I suggest to use our own OVHcloud managed Kubernetes. It's an easy, very cost-effective solution. So on our managed Kubernetes, you can easily install GitPod. You can install GitPod using the Helm chart. Everything is going to work. It isn't going to be very expensive, but you will have some great service. And that's all. Not really. Now it's time to do a small demo using, for example, this project I told you about, my small Stencil Beers tutorial. Let's go for the demo. As you can see, I have here my Stencil Beer project. It's a sample tutorial in order to create a catalog of beers. And the idea is I have divided my tutorial in 8 steps, and every step includes the instructions in order to do what it is needed in the step. So here we start the npm project, npm install, npm start, and all that. And then you begin to code, and at the end you have, oh, that's wonderful, you have the whole model and the whole application. But in order to do this tutorial, the attendees need to have Node, need to have TypeScript, need to have some tooling, and I didn't want it. So I simply added this button. As you can say, I am only calling a gitpod.io URL, giving as parameter my repository. I am going to try it. And then hey, I need an account. Well, I have my account, the free one, and GitPod is going to create a workspace with a public address from my project. Once the workspace is created, it opens the editor. It takes some time. And here we have the Visual Studio Code with the base of my project. When I have the source, the files, I have my component, my TypeScript, I have my package.json, and I have everything I need. And as I have used, no, thank you. As I have used a standard workspace image, I have all the tooling I need, for example, Node. So right now, I can do things like Node install in order to install all the components from my project. npm install. I think I am a bit sleepy right now, sorry. So I install all the dependencies from my project and npm start. As I can see here, I have npm start in order to launch a Stencil development server. Hey, it tells me we have a new service. We can do it private or we can do it public. I make it public. That means that I will be able to address it from the outside of my cluster. But here, from the inside of my GitPod, I have a browser where I can test my application. And of course, I can take this address and I can open it in a new tab, and I am able to test directly from local, from inside GitPod and from outside GitPod. Well, that's a really quick demonstration. I have no so many time, but when you will get the slide of the presentation, you will see other use cases, other examples, another Git repository in order to test all these examples. I really hope you have liked this presentation. I really hope I have been able to show you the interest of this kind of tooling. I haven't taken time in order to compare it, for example, to GitHub, Codespaces, or other alternatives, but please have a look at it, test it, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to tell me either here right now or by Twitter to Lost in Brittany after the talk. Have a good day. Bye.
Here we are. Welcome back, Horacio.
Hello.
So I have a couple of questions for you. The first is,
Okay.
have you ever tested GitPod for complex systems?
Well, I have done some relative complex system by myself for the courses I have done, but I have also tested a very, very complex systems, the whole GitLab environment. So GitLab has published the workspace GitPod, where you can take and run all the GitLab code base, and that means all the different subsystems. And it takes some minutes to boot up, but once it has been boot up, it works. It simply works. So yeah, you can do really complex things. You will only need to work a bit the Docker files, but here it is a containerday conference. I think you should be able to do it. If I am able to do it, you should be able to do it.
Okay, cool. And you show us how to install in a Kubernetes environment, but there's any kind of mode to install in a simple virtual machine?
Yes, it is a problem that many people have, because having a Kubernetes cluster, it isn't always as easy as you would like. You also could install it on K3s. the Key3s, the small Kubernetes-like distribution that you can install in any virtual machine. So an easiest way to do it, you take a cloud instance, and on the cloud instance, you install K3s, and directly you install GitPod over it. You only need a small to medium virtual machine in any cloud provider.
That's cool. I don't see any question from the attendees. Do you want to add something to the information you give us already?
Well, for me, it is a product that it isn't sold by my company. So when I promote it, I do it really because I think it is a very good solution for a common problem. I have used it in the real world for different kind of problem, to doing workshops, to doing learning sessions, to every time you need to give some developer a ready to use developer environment without having to install anything by hand. And for me, it is a use case you also find in enterprise when you have some freelance that arrives to work 1 or 2 days in one feature, or when you want to make some people to work in a new project for a time. It is really interesting for a company. So please take some time. I think you are going to like it. And at the heart, it is fully Docker, fully container. So people, I think you would like it.
Thank you. And
Thank you very much.
thank you for participating to Container Day Digital Edition. And I hope to see you physically for the
Let's
next
hope.
edition, maybe.
Maybe.
And thank you. Bye.
Bye.